We like to think of ourselves at Policy Watch as North Carolina's most visible progressive public policy think tank, idea shop, sort of the front page for the North Carolina Justice Center where we're housed. Obviously, we've had a lot of these crucial conversations on a lot of important issues, and today's, those have included taxes, the death penalty, healthcare reform, you name it. Today's is a very important subject that we think has probably not received the attention it should in North Carolina in recent years. We had sort of a spate of activity in and around the adoption of the state lottery, but since that time, the subject of gambling and state involvement in it has sort of retreated from the limelight, and we think it's probably time to shine a little more attention on that issue. For several years now, corporate gambling interests have really been ratcheting up their investments in North Carolina. Gambling money can be found in the campaign coffers of politicians of all stripes, and gambling corporations are listed among the clients of several of the state's top law and lobbying firms. And the goal of these investments is really clear. Gambling corporations seek not just to eliminate government as an impediment to gambling, but to make public institutions from the Department of Revenue to the Department of Commerce to the Department of Public Instruction full partners in their efforts. So the question is really, is this going to work? Is it just a matter of time until North Carolina follows the road traveled by so many other states? Should we care? Is the expansion of gambling something to be resisted, or just a lost cause we should simply, with which we should simply make the best? Today we'll tackle these questions and many more with two very special experts. Les Burnell is the Executive Director of the Stop Predatory Gambling Foundation, a national organization based in D.C. Les has been ED of the foundation since it was formed 4 years ago. And during this time, he's spoken and written extensively about the failed government policy of predatory gambling. He's also appeared on national TV and radio, including 60 Minutes, CNN, Fox News Channel, National Public Radio, even the BBC, and innumerable publications. Prior to joining this movement, Les served as Chief of Staff in the Massachusetts State Senate and worked as a campaign strategist for more than 40 federal and state campaigns. We'll also be joined by Professor Charles Clotfelter, who is the Z. Smith Reynolds Professor of Public Policy Studies and Professor of Economics and Law at Duke University, where he's taught since 1979. He is also director of the Center for the Study of Philanthropy and Volunteerism at Duke, and is a research associate of the National Bureau of Economic Research. His major research interests are in the economics of education, the nonprofit sector, public finance, and tax policy. And he's been a long-time observer of the state lottery and its adoption in North Carolina and its implementation. He's also the author of Big Time Sports in American Universities, which is just last year, and After Brown, The Rise and Retreat of School Desegregation in 2004, and Buying the Best, Cost Escalation in Elite Higher Education in 1996. So, two very accomplished speakers. I see we've also been joined by Representative Pricey Harrison from the State General Assembly, who's joined us. I don't see any other elected officials, but it's a great audience. We really appreciate you being here. And without further ado, let's welcome Les Burnell.
Well, good afternoon. Thanks for coming. I want to thank North Carolina Policy Watch for putting this event together. I actually first learned about North Carolina Policy Watch thanks to the work of Sarah Ovaska and her report about the North Carolina lottery. We actually blogged about it. We sent her work around the country. Again, it's really a credit to this organization that you are putting a spotlight on this failed public policy. So I want to thank you for what you've done, and you're seeing more and more organizations like yours around the country beginning to do this. I also want to recognize Professor Clotfelter, who's here, and his colleague Philip Cook, who have really been, arguably some of the most astute observers of state lotteries in America since really the late 1980s. And so it's an honor to be here with you today. So my speech today is mostly going to be talking about why this is a failed policy. This is not a debate about whether people can gamble. This is a debate about government and gambling. So just so we're clear, set that framework. Okay. And I'm going to just kick off before I get to the heart of my remarks. I just want to make sure we're clear what our mission is as an organization. It's to end government's failed policy of predatory gambling. Okay. We're not talking about banning gambling. We're talking about getting government out of the predatory gambling business. And let's define predatory gambling. It's the practice of using gambling to prey on human weakness for profit. Okay, it's commercial gambling. all right? Using gambling to prey on human weakness for profit. So when we use the phrase predatory gambling, that's what we're talking about. All right. There's our website for what we don't cover today. There's an enormous amount of information about this issue. I urge you to visit our website, stoppredatorygambling.org, and that's the cover of our homepage. But feel free to email me this for any questions afterwards at any time. This is an issue that's growing in America, and we certainly we will bring change in this by people being educated, and this is our website's one of our prime vehicles to do that. Okay. And I want to emphasize, because some people think, the anti-gambling folks, or, they think this certain image of who are the anti-gambling people. I don't consider myself anti-gambling. I consider myself an opponent of the government policy of predatory gambling. And it's an issue that encompasses people from the left and the right. And as we'll touch on several times today, it's really the only issue in America where you can get people from very diverse constituencies to sit around a table and say, this is wrong. This is a failed policy. And that's what makes this issue so unique. Okay? And so I want you to it's a constant theme I'm going to refer to, and I want you to think about that, is as we try to unite our nation to find common ground, this issue really, more than any other, is that common ground. It bridges very diverse constituencies because it embodies what we are as a people, what kind of government we want to have. All right. So my talk today I call "The Smartest Guys Not in the Room," and those of you who are somewhat familiar with Enron, you'll recall that there was a documentary and a great book written by a Forbes reporter about Enron, and it was called "The Smartest Guys in the Room." So we call this issue "The Smartest Guys Not in the Room," and you'll see as we move forward why we call it that way. All right. So there's three chapters in this story we're going to talk about today. Chapter 1 is the King's Speech. Chapter 2 we titled "Waiting for Superman, but Getting the Luck Ambassador Instead." And chapter 3 we call "Bread and Roses." Okay. So chapter 1, the King's Speech. Now, so those of you, maybe you've seen this movie. There was a great movie that came out the last couple of years called The King's Speech. And these are my favorite visuals from the movie. It's the future king sitting there, has this incredible stuttering problem, and he's about to make this announcement for a crowd full, stadium filled with people, and he can't deliver. Right? He just stutters. It's an incredibly humiliating moment. Here you are. This guy has royal blood, and he's before all these people, and he can't speak. So an incredibly embarrassing moment for him and his family. And so I use this reference of the King's Speech because we are living in a country where most of us, if you're human beings, you've felt this way before. We've all had moments where we stand up and you're like, we just haven't delivered the way we want to deliver. We've all had a sense of failure. But what's powerful about this image is here you have a guy who's royalty who has failed. And I think I use this as a segue into how I got involved in this issue. Is I was just like you. I was a normal everyday person. I have 2 kids. And had a good career path that I was, like to think I was fairly successful in. But I began to learn about this issue, about government and gambling. And the more I learned about it, the more I kept saying to myself, does the public really understand what we do? Okay? Does the public understand the business practices and who's playing and so forth? Because I think the public really understood this. We'd be out of this business. We wouldn't be doing this. And so to me, there's no issue that came to better represent what's broken about government than this one. But I use also the royalty analogy because, here's my other thing, is I have a big secret that I'm going to share with you today. And those of you who see me speak before, you kind of know what my big secret is. But my big secret is, I'm not a handsome guy, I'm just an average athlete, so forth, but I have royal blood. All right? I have royal blood in my veins. But my royal blood is different than some of these other folks that you see in our country. So, but there's Queen Elizabeth, all right? There's Queen Elizabeth, Prince William, and Princess Kate, and there's me. All right? I'm part of the royal family. But as I said, but my blood is different than theirs. Okay? My royal blood is very different. I live in a country where we don't have kings or queens. I live in a country where in America, all blood is royal. And right now, we also live in a country where we're each part owners of this democracy. Every one of us, we are part owner of it. Okay, we're all a lord over this country, if you will. And right now, what we own as a people is broken. And it doesn't matter whether you're from the left or the right, it's broken. And it's fixable, but it's broken. And it's going to be up to every one of us to fix it. And so we asked what drives me to travel around the country and talk about this issue, why this movement's emerging. It's a sense of that this is an issue that represents what's not just broken about our government today, but it's broken about really getting America back on the right track. And so, I'm not the only one that feels that way. All right. In fact, we're living during a time, I'm 42 years old. I don't ever remember a time from my generation where you've had so many people from both sides of the aisle who are these disaffected citizens who are actively protesting in the streets. And there's big corporate interests and our big political parties are trying to keep these very different, in some respects, different constituents apart from each other, but there's some real ways in which they intersect. And this is an actual picture of a Tea Party protester and an Occupy Wall Street protester. Okay? So this idea that, we are living beyond our means, and there's a lot more that we have in common than we think we do. And so, again, this issue is the one that bridges that. So the question that I read this from a blogger who was in the Atlantic, let's say in late October, then he nailed this question, right? Aren't these two groups, Occupy Wall Street and the Tea Party, really raging against different halves of the same machine? By James Sinclair. And the machine, okay, this machine is a power structure in which power is wielded by a small number of interests that spend enormous sums of money lobbying for the government to have more power, enacting special laws and regulations to their advantage, all at the expense of the common good. So that's not an anti-government message, nor is it really an anti-corporate message. What it is, it's an anti-collusion message. We have these very powerful interests that have corrupted the mission of government, of which this issue more than any other symbolizes that corruption. Right? And so is there a common ground that can unify these diverse groups of citizens protesting this axis of corruption? And believe it or not, it's the government's gambling program of state lotteries and casinos. Okay. It unites citizens from the left and the right, and it's really the only issue that does, and it hits the existing power structure squarely at a vulnerable place. It's where the compact between government and its citizens has been most betrayed. What you have here is to show this collusion between these powerful interests in government. So you have billion-dollar gambling interests, like those here, some of those here in North Carolina, are lobbying government to legalize a scheme to lure millions of citizens into becoming new and frequent gamblers. And as a regional monopoly, no less. And then they get government to fix the rules to maximize the extraction of money from the citizenry. That paragraph is government's gambling program at its core. Okay? And government's partnership with gambling interests has fundamentally changed the compact between government and the government. It pits government's interests against the best interests of its people. Okay? For government to win, its citizens must lose. Okay? We're really betting against ourselves. So we ask ourselves, how can you restore people's trust in government today? How can you help eliminate some of the cynicism people have towards government? Well, this is the public voice of American government today. Right? Lotteries and casinos. Okay? This is besides military recruitment, we don't advertise virtually anything else. Maybe some higher ed advertisers. But other than that, we don't advertise anything else. But for government to win, its citizens must lose. So we're betting against ourselves. All right? Which leads me to chapter 2. Waiting for Superman, but getting the luck ambassador instead. Okay. So those of you who have seen, how many here have seen the movie Waiting for Superman? The documentary, most of you have seen it. All right, for those of you who haven't, you should. It's a great film about some of the challenges in our public education system today. And this is really one of the key figures in it. His name's Jeffrey Canada. He runs a school system up in Harlem. And he had a great line in there. He goes, education in this country used to be your way out. If you wanted to work, if you want to work hard in education, that used to be a way out of poverty. But now we have, millions of kids in broken schools, all right, who aren't getting that chance to get a way out. But that's the message, right? Education in America used to be the way out. But instead, what we get more of today, government has more of a commitment to providing fun than opportunity. right? Across this country, not just here in North Carolina, government is aggressively promoting what they call fun. We're going to encourage people to play the lottery, bring in more casinos. We're in the entertainment business. Because you know something, it's a lot easier to be in the entertainment business than it is to provide real opportunity for citizens. And today, the lottery represents the best way out for many citizens. Okay? So no, not education, all right? The lottery. Okay? 21% of Americans say the lottery is the most practical path to wealth. Think about that. I mean, virtually probably no one in this room thinks that, but you have 1 out of 5 Americans who think that's the most practical way to wealth. Okay? This percentage was higher among lower income individuals, with 38% of those who earn less than $25,000 pointing to the lottery as a solution. And that's from the Survey of Opinion Research Corporation, and was done for the Consumer Federation of America and the Financial Planning Association, 2006. Okay, Consumer Federation is a big player in our country doing a lot of research for consumers. And if you ask me what helps drive me on this issue, like that. I mean, that's a perversion of the American dream. Okay. We wonder why a lot of groups, from both sides of the aisle talk about we want to do asset building for working people. How do you do asset building? How do you help people build a nest egg? How do you help people get advanced in America when they think their best hope is to buy virtually worthless lottery games? And let's make no mistake, again, this isn't about gambling. This is a government program, okay? This was Bank of America or the Money Store, other places. A lot of groups will be up there in their face protest. This is a government program. This is what makes it a government program. Gambling is illegal unless the government makes it legal, okay? Where you have legal gambling, the government has weighed all the costs and benefits and decided that this is okay. So we as a room, if we want to go open up our own casino, you can't. You can't. Okay? It's a monopoly. It's a small amount of very powerful interests that get access to these casinos. Okay? The lottery, I can't go in the lottery business. I can be a lottery retailer, but the state runs it. It's a state monopoly. Okay? This is a government program. This is a quote from Nelson Rose, who teaches a lot of law on gambling out on the West Coast. But I use that quote because I think it sums it up. Like, this is a government program that does this. All right? And it's a government program that has turned America's working class into its lottery class. That's what we have today. The working class, the incomes are getting smaller. We're having a bigger gap between rich and poor. And government's answer is we're going to put more extreme forms of gambling into the public sphere. Okay? The lottery class. All right. And this campaign to turn citizens into losers has become the voice, the public voice of American government today. Okay? What else, when you ask citizens today, what else is government, what do they think of the public voice of government? It's this issue. We don't see it that way. This is the reality. It's everywhere. You walk into a convenience store, gas station, television, radio, it's everywhere. Okay? The public voice of American government today is government's policy of casinos and state lotteries. Okay? So, and I'm going to show you this just because sometimes, like you, I never pay attention to this issue. I grew up in a state where, the lottery was passed in like 1971 or 1972. I never even questioned the lottery. When we used to debate casinos up in Massachusetts, we used to say, well, the lottery's different, it's already here. A lot of money goes to local aid. Let's focus on casinos. Okay? The truth is, the more I understood this issue, this whole concept of casinos is based on the lottery. The government's in the business, right? The lottery is kind of just, the casinos are just the extension off of the lotteries. But I want to show you, a voice of lottery advertising, what it is, and what it says to people. So let me get through this real quick. Okay, this is from the North Carolina Lottery, Education Lottery, off their website.
Prizes of $50,000 a year for life. This epic classic is sure to be one you'll enjoy for a lifetime.
See, when those lottery commercials come up, you kind of get.
Harley Davidson scratch-off game is back from the North Carolina.
Now, all of us, we watch TV, watching the NCAA games on television, whatever. Like, a lot of the advertising just washes over us. But that's the voice of government. So sometimes you just don't pick up on it, except when it's in context. You see that out of context. You see that as a voice of government. I mean, you wonder why you have one out of every 5 Americans think the best way out is that, especially those who are poor. Almost close to 40% think I'm going to play the lottery, going to help me pay my bills at the end of the month. I mean, that's why people think that. We have changed. We have helped shape our national character with this public voice of government.
An education lottery. And it's better than ever. Because this time, you can win.
That's where I was. Okay, hold on a second. So here's another example, okay? So when the lottery's passed here in North Carolina, all right? Most people don't play the lottery on a regular basis, especially our opinion leaders, okay? So people think it's like a $1 a week ticket, right? You know, it's a harmless dollar. That's not where they make their money, okay? State lotteries, if you don't have machines are where the action is, and I'll touch on machines in a second, but when they make their money is on scratch tickets. All right, and Keno's not, Keno is a game similar, but it's not as lucrative as scratch tickets. But that's why they want to get into the Keno business here in North Carolina, right? Because it's about the speed of play. All right, here's a scratch ticket. When they were advertising the lottery here, was it 2005 to pass it? They weren't talking about $20 scratch tickets. This is right off the website, 2 days ago from the North Carolina Lottery. You have 3 $20 scratch tickets. Okay, $20 scratch tickets. Why do you think the government's selling $20 scratch tickets? Because that same person who once played a $1 ticket, their goal was to get that guy who was playing $1 a ticket to go up to $2, up to $5, up to $10, and now that guy or a woman is playing $20 a ticket. What the industry term for that is? It's actually a term she quoted a slot machine designer saying, play to extinction. Okay? Play to extinction. This is a government program. Okay? Play to extinction. So she's coming out with a book this year, so you'll see her name going forward. But she's a player out of MIT, Natasha Sheldon, and God bless her for what she's doing. Because she's really informed, helped educate America about what this issue is all about. Okay? And so then there's a lot of folks. I come from a background. I live in a city in Massachusetts, very old industrial mill city. Has a lot of poverty in it. And a lot of good people speak out about the predatory lending and debt practices of a lot of the folks that just target poor communities. All right, great, a lot of great work. North Carolina, to its credit, was really a national leader in reforming predatory lending in this country, and it's a credit to the people in this room and elsewhere that happened. But here's the casino business. Okay, in 2006, prior to the massive crash of the highly predatory subprime lending business, which every state attorney general has sued them for their predatory practices. Right around late 2006, here's a quote from Harrah's top executive, Rich Merman, boasting to the Wall Street Journal reporter, Christina Binkley. Quote, I worked in the subprime lending industry. At least casinos are open about what they do. Okay? Incredible. This is before the subprime lending industry crashed. Okay? That's their business. Their business is based on preying on people and pushing them into deeper debt. Okay, that's what it's about. Okay, it's a business based on getting people to lose money. And so, one of the things I always hope for, and I think it's changing over time, but the constituency in America that stands up to challenge predatory lenders, you can reform it dramatically, but until you start addressing government's predatory gambling program, you are not going to meaningfully address people's ability to save money, to build assets in this country until you address this issue. Okay, and that's why. And it's no coincidence that Harrah's, right? Harrah's is the partner with Cherokee. That's their business. Harrah's is the #1 casino company in America. Okay, they have the most sophisticated technology that they're using on their players and on citizens. As you look at the Harrah's Cherokee casino issue coming before your legislature, you need to make them explain their business. What does that mean? how do you like the subprime business? Why would we be in partnering with a business that every state AG has sued? Okay. This is also from Christina Binkley, the Wall Street Journal reporter. 90% of Harrah's money, now they go by Caesars, but they kept the branding for the Cherokee Casino as Harrah's. But 90% of Harrah's money, their gambling profits, comes from 10% of their users. Okay? So if there was a Harrah's executive here today, all those are the whales, right? Listen, those of you who know casinos, okay, Harrah's is not a place where whales go to. Like a whale, by a whale, is somebody who's like a billionaire, goes there, drops a couple $1 million on a weekend. That's not what we're talking about. Harrah's business model is they're the low rollers. Okay, they focus on low rollers, and I'll have a stat here that shows you a little more what I mean by a low roller. But that's their business. So 90% of their money comes from 10% of those low rollers. Okay, and for lotteries, it's right from the New York Times. Okay, 80% of the lottery money comes from 10% of the players. All right, that's why the lottery spends so much time and effort branding themselves as the per capita spending. As if anyone in this room is spending $5,000 a year on lottery tickets, right? I mean, this is not happening. Okay, they try to minimize the numbers, and so the truth is 80% of the lottery's profits across the country come from 10% of their players. Okay, and that's why they're selling $20 scratch tickets. All right, here's a couple quick important facts about a slot machine. What makes it different, somewhat more extreme than some other forms of government gambling coming into the marketplace is a person can gamble on a slot machine every 5 seconds. Okay, every 5 seconds. That's more than 600 times per hour. All right, the speed of play is incredible. So what you're doing with this government program is you put Las Vegas on Main Street. Okay, you're bringing that high. If you go out to Las Vegas, play slot machines. Okay, you're not going to get addicted there overnight. But you start putting slot machines where people can go after work. You have a tough day with your kids. A tough day with your boss. Now I need to blow off some steam. You go to casinos to escape. Okay, getting high. So aside from wanting to win money, people go to escape to get high. All right, so understand, that's why so many of these people who push gambling, the predatory gambling into the marketplace, they don't gamble. They don't get the business of what a casino's about. They don't get it. All right. In terms of frequency of play, how this is so addictive, here's another Harrah's, a snippet from the Harrah's business model. Harrah's Chester is a casino outside of Philadelphia. All right. This is a quote from their general manager. He said the customers in his database visited an average of 4.5 times a week. 4.5 times a week to playing slot machines. That's a government program. Just slightly less often than many people go to work. Okay? Incredible. 4.5 times a week. But they estimate, the Wisconsin Problem Gambling Council estimates 340,000 people are compulsive gamblers in Wisconsin. That's 7% of the state's population. 7%. Okay? So they already have casinos. You talk about bringing that into your state. Why? Why would you? Okay, so that's roughly, probably now have close to 44K in debt, but you're talking some big numbers, all right? Assuming most of them are close to that, that's an incredible amount of debt level caused by predatory gambling, all right? Let's talk briefly about the business practices that makes this the most predatory business in America. Free play, right? The casinos will show up before your legislature and they'll say, well, people are already gambling. They're already doing this. But when they come into a market, the first thing casinos will do is they'll mail every household free play. Here's $50 worth of free slots play. Come on down and play. But when you get down to the casino, you got to get the card, the consumer card. You fill out your information, okay? They get the $50 worth of free slots play. A lot of people don't ever go back, but what they do is they introduce people to the product and they track your play. If you show the propensity to be someone who plays fast, someone who will chase your losses, they market you like unbelievable, better than any business in America how they market, okay? Because they have your card, they know your history of wagering and how fast you play, all right? So that's creating new players. Free alcohol, okay? Government, we don't give up, no other business is really allowed to give up free alcohol except for this one. And why is that? Because they want you to play recklessly, okay? Markers, they'll loan you money interest-free, all right, knowing that you're going to lose it at that casino. You had a tough day, you're out of money, you exceeded your ATM limit for the day, you maxed out your credit cards. I'll tell you what, you own a house, we'll give you an advance of $5,000 on your house. We'll give you a line here to gamble with, the credit line. And they know that people are going to lose their money there, okay? Hosts, okay? If you're a good player for them, they assign a host to you, okay? Someone who will call you all the time, like your best friend. Okay? Hey, Rob, how was your day today? Why don't you come on down, we'll hook you up with a free supper and $50 worth of free slots play. What other business does that? Okay, and they get away with it because government's a partner. Casino ATMs, I put up there because casino ATMs are owned by a company called Global Cash Access. It's its own niche in the ATM business. And what they do is the casino ATMs, they sell the list back to the casinos who take money out of casino ATMs. So if Rob goes takes money out of a casino, they sell that list back to the casino. Why do they do that? Right? Why does the casino want to know who takes money out of the casino ATM? Because what's the number one indicator for someone who's an out-of-control player? Someone who will chase their losses. Okay, incredible. All right. So here you have they're selling the list back. The casinos are. We don't know who the problem gamblers are. Of course they do. Okay. And so then they market to you like crazy. You take money out of a casino ATM, they own you. All right. Play to extinction I touched on, and this is my favorite. I just want to touch on luck ambassadors because that's a term coined, created by Harris, which again is partnering here and trying to get into the North Carolina sector. All right. It's actually right from a job description we took in 2011 from a casino application, a casino website for Harris out in Reno. All right. This is the job description, part of the job description. Enhances guest slot entertainment experience by creating a fun, high-energy environment through celebration of slot wins and building players' perception of luck. Okay, helping build players' perception of luck. So what that means is, that's fancy speak for Rob's one of these freaking players. He's having a tough day. Okay, they know, the casino knows for every minute, every hour that Rob sits at a slot machine, he's going to lose a certain amount of money. They think Rob is about his limit for the day. In real time, they'll send Sarah over. Hey, Sarah, go over and give Rob $50 worth of free slots play. Keep him sitting. She comes over. Hey, Rob, you have a tough day. Here's $50 worth of free play on us. And you know what? Rob keeps playing. Keeps playing. Okay? Luck ambassador. All right? We're creating the perception of luck. All right? Harris track play. All right? We like to say they don't know who these people are who's playing. All right? 80%, they can track 80% of the money who they get, they know where it's coming from. 80% of the money, they know where it's coming from. So they know who these out-of-control players are, who these indebted players are. Who that 10% that's making all their money from, they know exactly who they are. Okay? 60% of the gambling machine revenue comes from problem gamblers. All right? 60% of the gambling machine revenue comes from problem gamblers. They don't have a business without problem gamblers. That's why they want the slot machine so badly here. Okay, real class 3 slots. And this is, very sophisticated snapshot. This is right, by the way, this is right from a presentation they gave out at Stanford Business School that we got. This is a copy of their own, what their database looks like. All right, very sophisticated marketing about who gambles, how much they lose. Yeah. A few other things here. Just inside, you can order a drink, touch screen, right from this machine. They want you to keep you there as long as possible. And then really where they want to be is wireless. That's the future, internet gambling. All right, what they want to do now, take that slot machine experience and bring it into every home, dorm room, office in America, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's the big fight. So again, give people a big incentive and they're going to react to it, and we have. All right? The Bet That Blew Up Wall Street is a 60-minute special. We talk about how this public voice of government changes our economy. All right? It actually, in late 2000, we passed a law where Congress preempted the states from enforcing existing gambling and bucket shop laws against Wall Street. Okay? It was a gambling push. Now, it's kind of led us down this path that we're in. The credit default swaps at 60 minutes was the key to what went wrong and what's created these enormous losses. Real-life casino gambling is now an essential part of government's economic policy in nearly every state in America. It was casino capitalism. It was a metaphor for the events, and now it's become real economic policy. I'm just going to wrap up here with one last thing, and I'm happy to talk to folks afterwards. There's one video I want to show. We'll touch on travel casinos in our question and answer period. But I just want to say, maybe some people sitting here saying, well, isn't it less at the end of the day, it's just entertainment? Isn't it like going out to dinner, having a glass of wine, going to the movies? Well, here's some barbecue on the grill here, right? I mean, the guy that makes the barbecue, he eats his own barbecue. Robert Mondavi, he drank the wine he made. Okay, Julia Roberts, she watches the movies she makes. All right, I'm going to close with this one video here called The Smartest Guys Not in the Room, which I think crystallizes more than anything else this government program. one second. At the end of this, I'd like to have you sign our American Declaration before you leave. Thank you very much.
You know that. I bet we could sit here all day and watch that stuff. It's good stuff. I want to have Professor Klotfelter come up now and address the group, and then we'll have some time after that to take a few Q&A for everybody. Professor Klotfelter. Yeah, let's put that.
Now, Rob, we talked about 15 minutes. What do we really have now?
We got 15.
What time or do people need to go?
Well, if people need to go, they'll politely excuse themselves.
Well,
but I think we could go to 1:15, 1:20.
But I think that, are you going to have a chance to talk about legislation in North Carolina? Because is there? Because I don't know about it.
No, we're
you're not?
going to have Q&A. But
Okay, all right.
You're the rest
Somebody
of the
should.
Okay. Well, if there is, I think we ought to have time for that, and that would be more important than what I can say. I'm a professor. I'm an economist, so no more apologies. And it shocked me the other day to find out that this book that Phil Cook and I wrote is now 21 years old, and so it just shows how long we've been thinking about this. And so most of my work has been episodic since then. Let me give you just a quick few professor's points, and I'll let you guess whether I agree with Les. Okay? So this is the way an economist would look at this. There's really three distinctive characteristics of state-sponsored gambling, and that mainly means lotteries. So our book was on lotteries, but a lot of what we studied about lotteries really would apply today. Lotteries have a long and honored history in this country. George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson all played lotteries. What happened in America is that lotteries were used, and actually money from lotteries went to pay for bridges, even churches, dorms at Harvard University, even part of a revered University of North Carolina was paid for by a lottery. But it went into disrepute in something called the Louisiana Lottery, and then it just got more and more corrupt. Then they were banned everywhere. And in our modern day, the first modern state lottery was in New Hampshire in 1964. Now some 43 states plus the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands have state lotteries. And in this state, we took the plunge in 2005. Three characteristics of state lotteries, and I would say also of these other games. One, the state has a monopoly. It's the only producer. Before 2005, it was illegal to play numbers. It was illegal to have lotteries in this state. Then it became legal, but there's only one producer, the state of North Carolina. The second characteristic is that they don't get taxed. The money that comes out is not officially a tax, but Phil and I adopted the term implicit tax because it sort of walks like a tax, talks like a tax, and it's money that is no longer in people's pockets. It is a voluntary contribution, but it's voluntary in the same sense that I go and get broccoli at the Harris Teeter, and then I pay some percentage of tax on different things. And we have a sales tax that's up to 7%, though it does exclude certain kinds of items. So keep 7% in your mind for a second. Think about whether the lottery, if the state lottery were an excise tax, what would it equal to? All right, so this is, and if you have a pencil, you need to write down these three numbers. This is the way a dollar in lottery typically gets split up in this country. 62 cents of that goes back to the players in the form of prizes. Less's state, Massachusetts, has always been the leader in that, in keeping this what is called a payout rate high. But that's pretty much, I think that's close to what we do in North Carolina. So 62 cents is prizes. 8% it costs to run the thing. So you have to pay the retailers and you have to pay your administrative costs. And then what that leaves, so that's 62 and 8, that's 70, that leaves 30 cents for every dollar for the state. Okay, so that's, you can think of that as the profit rate. But think about that as an excise tax rate. So it's the amount of money that's taxed divided by the value of the thing you're getting. And the thing you're getting here are the prizes plus the administrative cost. So basically, it's 30 divided by 70. And that is a whopping excise tax, far and away above anything else we tax. So the second characteristic, extremely high implicit tax rate. So monopoly, extremely high tax rate. The third characteristic is marketing. Now you could imagine, let's go back in the world and say, people are going to gamble, you know, it's just one of those things, and who should we in the state say no, they can't do that? So economists would certainly say we shouldn't prohibit things that are, you know, for most people pretty harmless. So let's let them do it, but let's do it in the way we do alcohol. You sort of give it in a brown paper bag, you know, we won't make a big deal of it. You want to gamble, fine, come in, we'll let you gamble, but you know, we're not going to make a big deal of it. But they don't do it that way. They sell it, they charge a monopoly price or tax the heck out of it, and then they market it. And so we've got these three things, and it's not just the advertising examples of which you saw. As I learned in writing this book, I didn't go to business school, but I know that if you learn marketing, which is an honorable profession if there is one, but it's applied with all the bells and whistles for this product. There are these 4 P's that I learned about. Price, product, promotion, and place. We'll forget about place, but there's a little bit of that. Price, well, it used to be a scratch-off ticket was $1. In fact, you could originally even less than that. But as Les has said, they're going more and more to big ticket items. You can still get things, I think, for $1 and $2. If you know, you don't have to admit that you know. Anyway, all right, so price is one thing. Product is key. It turns out in this business, people get tired of the same old thing. So you need a new theme. You need Lucky 7, you need jackpot, you need World Series, all these different things. And so you need to increase that. Well, now here is I would call it scary. Okay, so this is a New York Times article that actually quotes Les at the end. And I'll just read this, but if you want to get scared, this is the future. Forget about state lotteries. This is the future. The District of Columbia is not thrilled that its residents are traveling to Maryland, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia to gamble in casinos. Starved for cash, like states across the country, the district wants some of the millions in revenue that gambling generates each year. So district officials want residents to gamble closer to home. Inside their homes, actually, or in cafes, restaurants, and bars. By year's end, the district hopes to introduce an internet gambling hub that would allow Washington residents to play blackjack, poker, and other casino-style games. They can do it from Starbucks, a restaurant, bar, or hotel, said Buddy Rugo, executive director of the D.C. Lottery, who expects the new games to eventually raise $9 million a year. That's real money in D.C. Now, D.C. is a jurisdiction that really needs revenue. Imagine you're in a state like Missouri and you see those Kansans open up casinos and all your people going across the river playing over there. Do you want to be the sucker who lets them do that? So there has been a great race to the bottom. And so that states are falling over themselves to get this revenue because Lord knows they need the revenue. So we have what we call is sort of a new frontier, and the new frontier in the guise of lottery marketing is to develop products that will appeal. Now, back when we wrote this book, we thought, well, what's the future look like? Well, it's probably going to be dialing up your telephone and finding and betting on something like, we had no idea what was going on. Well, the technology goes forward, and it looks like that it's going to be on the web. Now, there are some federal legal problems, and so, don't put your money right now on internet gambling. But the point is that the good people who run our state lottery agencies, they have a charge from their legislatures, and the legislatures say, go out and raise money. So they're only doing what they feel like they're supposed to do. But what it does, it puts the state, and I don't know how many times Les kept repeating this is the government doing this. And I started writing it down. This is a government program. And I just want to say, this is a government program. And so here, we see in the News and Observer back a couple of weeks ago, we had an article about Keno. Now, Keno is just another game. It looks a little like Lotto, but you can do it more often. You usually have to go to a bar or someplace, and you can bet every few minutes. And there's all kind of varieties to do this. And what they're looking at in terms of the marketers, they're saying what people really want is, one, a sense that they're participating. And if they feel like they're participating, then they have this illusion fueled by the superstition that motivates us all in different amounts, but the superstition that I can manipulate the chance that I'm going to win. One state once had a motto that says, don't let your number win without you. Well, Cook and I think that this is the state simply feeding in to superstitions that are out there. The New York State motto, this is not their advertising, this is their lottery motto. It's, what is it? It's hey. Oh, hey, you never know. Well, that's the same idea. Your lottery number might win. And so what we see is the state lottery. I'll get back to Keno in just a second because it's a quotation that it just carries a lot of weight, I think. But I looked on the website today for the NC Education Lottery, and you can go in and they flip different scenes. One, Charlotte woman to make home repairs with $125,000 prize. Pitt County electrician, $100,000. This could be you, is the theme. It could be, it's every man, every woman. It could be you. So the article on Keno, and then I think I'll just about shut my wide, and you might be able to guess how I feel. And is this. Here's the state lottery executive director, Alice Garland. She was quoted in an early edition of the News and Observer, which quote does not appear in the later editions that are carried by the Associated Press. I don't know why, but here's the quote. What we'd like to do here, this is with respect to Keno, what we'd like to do here, this is a government employee, I'm quoting, well, I don't know, they might be an independent commission, but effectively, this person works for the state of North Carolina, and they make more than the governor. Maybe not more than Roy Williams, but makes more than the governor. Okay. What we'd like to do here is get a lot of people playing a little bit, not a few people playing a lot, Garland said after the meeting. The way you do this is you go into new markets and you introduce games to folks who have not played before. Okay, this is your government, and what it is doing is pushing a product for which it has the monopoly position and for which it is charging an unbelievably high price. And so let me just conclude that this was published by the National Bureau of Economic Research. One of the rules in the National Bureau of Economic Research, thou shalt make no policy recommendations. And there are no policy recommendations here. I don't have any policy recommendations today, but it is legitimate for me to work on policy-related matters. I am in the Terry Sanford School of Public Policy at Duke, and so therefore, we're paid by the policy, that sort of thing. But anyway, so I'm interested, but I don't have a pronouncement. But I guess I would end with the statement that your government is doing this.
Thank you very much. I know we've got a lot of questions in the audience, and I also realize it's after 1, so people need to go. Obviously, we understand, but we would like to take a few moments to ask questions. I get to ask the first one. Bill Rowe, my colleague at the Justice Center, and I have been talking about this issue. You want to ask this question, or should I ask this question? All right. I think I'll get it right. The issue, and this is maybe to both of you, the interplay between the tribal areas and the states. The notion of Indian gambling. Are they independent nations? Do we have any real, and what is our, how much can we do to regulate what the Cherokees do? Should we be presuming to involve ourselves in what the Cherokees do?
I'll try this first.
Here, I'll hand the microphone over to you.
So I think that there's a philosophical, there's a philosophical answer to that, and then there's a legal answer, and so let me just go with the legal one. As far as I know, that there is federal legislation which requires any state to afford its tribes that are recognized by the U.S. government certain rights on gambling, and that is one of the things is they cannot restrict in Indian reservation gambling that goes on the rest of the state. That's one. But to the extent of going farther, there are guidelines, but I think what essentially happens is that each state makes a deal. Is that right?
Yeah. The only thing I would just add is, to clarify, is that you already have now in Western Carolina is Class 2 gambling because you have a lottery. The lottery is classified as Class 2, and so what's being proposed here now with the Harris is to be Class 3, the big-time casino gambling. You have complete control over that. Okay, you as a state do not have commercial casinos. So what Harris wants is they want to negotiate for Class 3, and they want exclusive rights to do it. So you have complete control over that. Regards to your Class 2, if you got out of the lottery business, the Cherokees won't be able to, the Harris won't be able to do the Class 2 machines they have out there now. So that's ultimately if we scale this back, you'll see the Native American casinos being scaled back.
Let me come to this person right here.
How does Harris make his money? If 62 cents goes to prizes, 8 cents goes to operations, and 30 cents goes to the state, what goes to Harris?
All right.
Go ahead, John. I think we should have gotten 2 microphones. Just go ahead.
The percentages I gave you were for state lotteries. And Harris is going to be a casino so it's operated by a private company. And so what the state could do there is you get the right to do this and you make us payments. So that is the way it would work. But I was giving you the state lottery breakdown.
Well, I have 2 questions. One is, how are these casino owners funneling money to politicians? Are there specific acts they're giving money to that we could learn the names of? And the second is, could somebody just tell us what we need to watch out for in North Carolina over the next couple of years? And where's the status of video poker, for example?
Les, do you want to take a stab at some
I'll
of
take
that?
the first one in terms of the money. I mean, arguably, it's hardly a bigger player in the political scene in America besides than these gambling interests. I mean, Sheldon Adelson, as you know, is a billionaire casino developer. Pretty much single-handedly is funding the super PAC for Newt Gingrich. I think it was the Center for Public Integrity, or maybe it was the Center for Responsible Politics in the late part of the decade, did a study showing that roughly 6 out of 10 of the top funders for 2 cycles, I think it was for 2008 and 2009, that 6 out of 10 of those top funders of political causes nationwide were gambling interests, okay? Because there was a lot of referendums that year. So they're huge players. In terms of what you can expect here in North Carolina, is these guys are going to spend and spend and spend until they push this legislation through. So until you awaken the conscience of the citizens here about what the real story is about this failed policy, they're going to keep spending and push this false narrative of jobs and revenues until people say it's inevitable. Right? That's the message. Well, it's inevitable. Just resign yourselves to it, and that's all part of the political strategy. And I'll let someone else speak to the discussion.
I'll add a little bit. This is what you need to imagine. Imagine once South Carolina and Virginia have casinos. What's it going to look like? What's the debate going to look like? So that's one thing. But going back when this over the state lottery, which, as you might remember, if you're old enough, you remember that it came up several times, and it was always a different reason. It was one year it was Republicans, one year it was Democrats, and whatever it was, it managed to fail. But then through hook and crook, and they used them all, it did pass in 2005, and our current governor was part of the drama on that one. But leading up to that, there was a great deal of lobbying done by the big companies that provide the products. So you run your own lottery, but you go to the experts to buy the games, and they'll also do marketing for you. So a lot of these things are just off the shelf, and it might look a little different in Iowa than it does in North Carolina, but the good people that are running the state lottery here are by and large buying products, and the people selling those products are standing to gain a lot.
And what about the video poker? I mean, is that something that, obviously it's a different game. It remains somewhat mysterious to me. We've just had a Court of Appeals decision here in North Carolina that's implying that maybe they can't restrict it. Do you have any thoughts on video poker, Les?
You can definitely restrict video poker. I mean, video poker it'd be considered a Class 3 game. It's the machine experience what these big gambling operators want. So whether it's a slot machine or a video poker, at the end of the day, it's getting you isolated, getting you sucked in to escape with that machine experience, and that's what they want. So they're even putting table games today on machines because they really can completely isolate you in that personal experience. And that was a lot of Natasha Shull's work from MIT. She got started on video poker. So there really isn't, in terms of the experience, the game itself is a little bit different, but in terms of the amount of money they take from you and the addictiveness of it, it's the same experience.
So even though you're winning, I don't know what it is, you win a token that you go in exchange for, it's this sort of mysterious process to me as someone who's never really participated in it.
Well, that's in terms of the video poker machines. Yeah, here they can't, probably because under your Class 2 laws, you probably can't just give a direct payout.
Right.
Well, you can now.
What's that?
You can now. I mean, that's what they're doing. That's what's in jeopardy.
Yeah, well, someone's got a challenge. That's why they push the envelopes to allow, make someone stop them, you know.
Let me just say, this is now a personal witness. Back when I was more involved with the lottery stuff, there were a couple of states that did VLTs, video lottery terminals. That was part of their operation. In North Carolina so far, I don't think they're part of it.
Yeah.
But this is what it is. So I was up giving a talk at the Portland State, and I said, please take me to one of the parlors where they do VLT, because Oregon is one of the few places that do this. And I'm from North Carolina. We don't have a lottery yet. And so they took me, and a very smoky place, bar here, there's a back room, and there was only one woman back there, and I said, would you mind if I watched you a little while? She said, no, not if you don't mind watching me lose. So she played. It wasn't a couple of minutes, and she was out of money. What did she do? She walked across the room, closer than this wall, to an ATM and got more money. So that, for me, was, wow, I'd never known about the ATMs. So I think it could be bad business, and the state is doing it.
Other question, Bill?
The other thing, I mean, just to put it in context, I think those of you who were fighting when the lottery was coming through, the debate is about how we get revenue in the state. And a lot of people will say we hate the lottery, but the citizenry hate taxes more. And so that's the other elephant in the room on all of this, is that how do we fund our government? And a lot of good people will say the lottery's bad, but they're not willing to say we need to have taxes, or we need to have a fair tax system. And that's what it just seems to always break down around. Everyone would watch this and say it's awful, but then we could have another video presentation, and probably a lot of people would, teabaggers and others will say, don't tax us, I'd rather have them in the lottery than this. So every state's grappling with that, it seems, since it's grown so much. And that's what we need to band together in some way to say we have to raise revenue for our government differently than this.
I just say two things. You can't have the conversation about raising revenue across the board and everyone if that's the public voice of government. Okay? All those people saying we should raise taxes on the wealthy, and so you can't have that conversation as long as we're raising taxes on the poor. All right? And secondly, those who say it's a revenue source, lotteries and casinos, they're a failed public revenue source. You challenge anyone to name a state in America where they've meaningfully funded their revenue, their government programs, meaningful, good government programs, with revenue from gambling. It's a gimmick. It's phony prosperity. It's the classic gimmick going. We have a line where we say, you pay even if you don't play. Because a lot of the people who play lotteries, we didn't get into this today, already are in some form of government subsidy. Like, government's spending this money to help people get ahead, whether it's healthcare subsidies, housing subsidies, you name it. And that money's being circled right through the system, and the gambling interests are just pulling a huge chunk out of it. So that's why you can't have a meaningful conversation. I was just at Occupy Wall Street 2 weeks ago, and we had this conversation. You can't talk about raising taxes on the rich if that's the public voice of government.
This is all interesting. My question is related to yours. How is it, if you promise that you're going to use the revenues from gambling for education, what's the track record been in other states about whether they started out using it for education and then changed using something else?
Yeah. We looked a lot at this question about earmarking. There hasn't been that many states that have changed. A few have. But the truth of the matter is you can earmark for something, but if you're earmarking for something that is a much bigger need than you are able to put money in, it might as well be regular revenue. So it's really an illusion to say that these dollars are actually going into education, because the legislature has an option next year of cutting back taxes. It's only where you can fund something that's never been done before. So Georgia's Hope Scholarship, which is ironically something completely financed by lottery revenues, which is a regressive tax, and it goes for mostly middle-class beneficiaries. And that one you could say, yes, that program is funded because it didn't exist before.
But just 10-second expansion on that is, as we speak today in Georgia, you know what they're trying to do? They're trying to legalize, the state lottery there is pushing to legalize slot machines, because the Hope Scholarship revenues aren't materializing. The revenues go down and down, because unless you're adding more and more extreme forms of gambling, like President Clother said, like people, any new games, you have to keep going more extreme forms of gambling to keep people losing money. And so now they can put slot machines outside of Atlanta, at the Atlanta Underground. They're pushing for that. And then they're going to try to frame it as, well, we need to give more money, if we're going to keep the Hope Scholarship Program alive. It's a gimmick revenue scheme, and that's why it doesn't work. And for 200 years, we funded people here without lotteries. We did through raising taxes. The reason why Ben Franklin and all those guys had lotteries is we didn't have another revenue stream. It was the only really way to raise money. And we weren't selling $20 scratch tickets back then either.
I think we have time for maybe one more question.
Bob didn't have a chance to ask whether he's going to ask too, but I just wanted to raise a point because it didn't really come up in your talk, and that's where they're selling the lottery tickets. It's become pretty reprehensible. I worked on legislation to prohibit the selling of lottery tickets at check cashing joints. They sell them there and they sell them at pawn shops, and actually successfully passed the House, but the Senate killed it. But that's a problem, and I ran into with the lottery. They said we can't restrict where we sell these tickets because the legislation doesn't authorize us to. So they're finding places, more and more places, to prey on the vulnerable, and that's just a particularly reprehensible aspect of the lottery. I just wanted to make that
No,
point.
appreciate it very much. Bob, I didn't see you back there.
I was just wondering about some success stories. Do you have any, maybe the economic times are pretty rough, but are there places where there's some incremental victories where this monstrosity is being pushed back in some ways or being curtailed, or some effort they're making has been really undercut because of popular pressure?
Sure. Well, what you see is in every state, they might the gambling issue, but then what they do is they keep coming back, spending more and more money. The state of Ohio just passed a referendum to legalize casinos there, but the it was defeated 4 times prior, and the gambling interests spent $50 million to change their constitution to ram it through. So there's a lot of genuine opposition out there to people. If you poll the public today, do you think government should promote gambling? I'd say close to 65 to 70% of the public would say no.
But they vote for the...
Well, no, but the problem is the narrative. That's why the narrative is it's to jobs and revenues. Like, by challenging the gambling interests and putting them in the same spheres we do predatory lenders and these other predatory businesses that are out there that, for the most part, we've curtailed, we'll win. But we have not been able to do that yet because we're just completely outgunned. But that's what when we got started, phase 1 of our strategic plan is this concept of an American Declaration on Government and Gambling. We're going to go out and collect 1 million Americans to sign this document and say, here's why it's time government gets out of this failed policy. And so in terms of long term, that's how we're going to do it. That's kind of phase 1 of the next year and a half. And then what we're going to do is over the next year or two to pick a couple states that we're going to go after and do a scale back. Like Oregon, you mentioned Oregon. Oregon's a state that's just unreal. I mean, that's where it's unbelievable how outrageous their lotteries. But North Carolina is a state with your history of attacking predatory lending and the fact that you have a very diverse constituency here who cares about this issue. You could win on this issue here. You just need people willing to put a flag in the ground saying this is broken. We got to get out of this business. But that's what it's going to take. So part of our mission is to awaken people's conscience about this. So yeah, we're in for the long haul. I come from a world, I used to coach sports, college sports. I used to run campaigns. That's much more instant gratification in terms of winning. This is a long haul, but this is one that matters. If you want to get government heading in the right direction again, it goes through this issue.
That was wonderful. Thank you.